Hello, my name is Jonathan Hill. I'm a volunteer genealogist with the 1921 Graves Identification Project and a volunteer with the Utah Cold Case Coalition. Today I wanted to go over some helpful tips and tricks for navigating FamilySearch's full text search. So how to enable full text search? So full text search can be enabled from the experiments page of FamilySearch.org. And I put the URL up on the screen of kind of the one you're going to want to type in to get to the experiments in the labs section of FamilySearch. So after you sign into your FamilySearch account, you'll hit the Try It button under Expand Your Search with Full Text. And I'll show you what that looks like right about here. So when you get to the labs page, this is one of the things that you're going to see. Essentially, you'll see kind of that middle one right where the arrow is, where it says Expand Your Search with Full Text. And there should be kind of a blue button there at the bottom that says Try It. So you'll want to click that button. And once you've clicked that button, this is what kind of that box will look like. You'll have the turn off. But what you'll want to click to is Go to Experiment. So let's jump right in with a case study. So let's say, for example, we were researching someone named Hazel H. Carroll. And we know that she resided within Tulsa County, Oklahoma around 1930. And our objective, let's say, was to learn more about her family. Well, how would we use full text search to kind of best help with finding out that information? Well, what we would want to do is we would want to go to the full text search that we were looking at earlier, and in the keyword section, we're going to type in the name Hazel H. Carroll in quotation marks. This will kind of be an exact search across the documents for anything that's going to come up with the word Hazel H. Carroll in that order, spelled that way. So these are the results that come up when you type in Hazel H. Carroll. And as you can see, there already are a lot of things related to Tulsa, which is where we know she was living around 1930. It's particularly a probate record that appears to have her name listed on it. So what we're going to do is we're going to click on that record, and that's going to bring us over to this page right here. And this page appears to have quite a lot of information on it. Obviously, Hazel H. Carroll is listed, and as we kind of read through it, you'll see there are a lot of other names and relations that are listed on this particular document. So a few things we're able to kind of learn from this document that were particularly helpful for our research, especially building out, family trees and things like that, is to learn that Hazel H. Carroll was married to Gray Carroll, who at the time of the record in 1930 was listed as being confined in a sanitarium. In addition to that, we also have listed the parents of Hazel Carroll. So we know it's George L. Haskin and Grace Haskin of Cushing, Oklahoma. And then in addition to that, we also have the full names and residences of multiple of Hazel's siblings. But one of the things is when we're looking at here is that you'll notice that there's a little film strip at the bottom. So we were just looking at this page of the document, and you'll see over to the side there's a transcription of the document as well. But where that arrow is pointing very down there at the bottom, you'll see there are other pages in this document as well. So if we start to leaf through the other pages, not just the one that we pulled up in the search results, but the ones surrounding it, we're actually able to glean quite a number of helpful information from the other pages within the document as well. The first thing is that there were much more siblings, right, listed on the second page. So now we know there's an Olin C. Haskins of Cushing, Arizona, and Mrs. Orlando Shotwell of Cushing, Oklahoma. And so you're seeing all these other people that were listed, on the second page, that if you just looked at the page that came up when we searched for it, initially, that you wouldn't be getting the full picture. So it's always helpful to go to the other pages. And then further in through the document, you actually find a petition for appointment of a successor guardian, and then it lists a great number of other siblings and their relationships and their addresses as of the time of this document, which looks to be about 1954. So it's really helpful to kind of see where they ended up in a lot of circumstances and what their names were and where they were living, which is really, really helpful, especially if you're doing cluster research and things like that, to kind of figure out, where people ended up and where they were moving to and what their married names were and things like that, which is particularly helpful. But let's say, for example, that we wanted to learn more about Hazel's parents, which we've already established are George L. Haskin and Grace Haskin. So what we're going to do is we're going to go back to the search page, and we're going to type in the name George L. Haskin, and we're going to put a plus symbol, and then we're going to put the name Grace. Now, what this is going to do is this is going to dramatically increase the amount of results we're going to get. As you can see, there are now, 10 million records that showed up as a result of that. But we're not really going to pay attention to the large number. We're just going to look at the first couple ones that come up, because what this is doing is it is searching for all of the records of George L. Haskin and all of the records of the word grace that appears in this database. But it's going to put up front the first couple, results are going to be ones that have both of those two terms on the same page. So as you can see now, there's some documents that might be particularly helpful to us that have both the word grace and the name George L. Haskin on the documents. So we're going to go through, and because there's so many of them here, we want to kind of narrow this down to specifically Oklahoma. So we're going to use at the top, it says place, you're going to actually limit it down to Oklahoma, which is going to be really helpful because we know that they're in that, that general vicinity. So that being said, we're going to see that there are a few more documents here that list both Grace and George L. Haskin together. And we're going to start to take a look at some of the documents that are here. We first have an oil and gas lease that actually labels, George L. Haskin and Grace Haskin of Cushing, Oklahoma, which is exactly the same people we were, the same name and place that we were looking for before. And this is to 1918, and it's just going to kind of give us some good information here. In addition to that, there was also, cemetery records here that came up, and it shows George L. Haskin. It shows his date of birth, his date of death. Grace Haskin, wife of George L. Haskin, her date of birth, her date of death. And this can be really helpful, and this might be really hard to go through cemetery records if you were just going through, the catalog and sorting page by page by page. So you can see how this, search function is incredibly helpful for finding, very specific information that, otherwise would have been very difficult to go through independently. The other thing you can do too is you can search for specific collections on these full text searches. So we're going to do a second case study here. Let's say we were looking into the Davenport family. We were hoping to find more information about the Davenport family that was enslaved in Tuscaloosa County, Alabama prior to the American Civil War. And let's say we were looking specifically for someone by the name of Alfred Davenport. So how would we go about researching this? Well, you go back to our homepage here with our full text search, but instead of jumping right in with keywords, what I want to do is actually click on where the arrow is. You see it says find a collection. You can browse all collections. So we're going to click on that, and it's going to bring up an alphabetical listing of, all of the things that are in full text search. And, just because they have it on here doesn't mean that it's complete, but it's showing you how many records they have kind of from each one of these collections, and they're continually adding more. I think one of the things that's really important to realize about full text search is it is going to give you a really good idea of some of the stuff that's in there, but none of these collections are truly comprehensive as of everything yet. So it's important to remember, just because you search wills and deeds doesn't mean that it's not helpful to still go through on FamilySearch, especially and go into some of the indexes and things like that, because it might still be digitized, but not necessarily on full text search yet. So that's something to keep in mind too, but it can make things easier, especially, before you start going page by page to see, if it comes up within the full text search. But regardless, we're going to go up to that top where it says enter a collection title. And we're going to type in Freedmen, because they have a lot of Freedmen's Bureau records that were recently added as of December 1st, 2024. You see there's quite a number of records in that collection, and especially Freedmen's Bureau records are very, very difficult historically to navigate because there's so many, pages of unindexed letters and, rolls and all the stuff that, is somewhat searchable or has been in the past, but, there's so many pages that we just haven't been able to fully look at because it's just, letters, right, and not really well indexed. So them adding the Freedmen's Bureau records on here is extremely helpful to the full text search, because you can search for keywords or places or names that might appear in some of the letters or larger documents that are in these Freedmen's Bureau collections. So we're going to click on that. And it's going to bring us to this page right here, so U.S. Freedmen's Bureau Records. And it kind of gives you a little bit of information about the kind of stuff that has been added onto these. So you'll see records from all the field offices of the United States Bureau of Refugees, Freedmen, and Abandoned Lands, which is really, really helpful. And I think they're going to continue to add more pages and more as we go through. But as of right now, which is December of 2024. They have a fair number on there. So we're going to type in the keywords. We're going to type in the name Davenport, just in keywords. And I'm not going to put any first names with it. I just want to know what is related to the Davenport family in the Freedmen's Bureau records. So we're starting off really broad, extremely broad, and we're going to kind of narrow it down using the filters. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to see the filtered results. And you'll see there's a number, right? There's 2,341 mentions of Davenport in these in the Freedmen's Bureau collection. But what we're going to do is we're actually going to filter it down by place. So we know that this family was located in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. And so what we are going to do is we're going to click United States, then we're going to click down Alabama, and then we are going to limit it down to Tuscaloosa. And you'll see now they're way more manageable of a collection. We have only 13 mentions of Davenport in Tuscaloosa County. So we're going to limit it down to there. And what you can also do the same with year. You can do the same with record type. If you go to like governmental records, that's another way to get to Freedmen's Bureau. But you can kind of pick what you want, what you think will be helpful in these collections as you go through. So that's something I found to be particularly helpful. But we're just going to limit it by location right now to Tuscaloosa County. And so you'll see here, this is one of those records we were talking about, right? And so you're going to see the name here, a Nelson Davenport, and he's going to talk about hiring Alfred Davenport on this record. And this is one of those things that, I think would have been really difficult to find years prior or months prior, because you would have had to go through every single page of the documents to find a letter like this and actually read every single document, because these were really hard to be indexed prior. And so using full text search, you can kind of now just type in what you're looking for, and it will come right up with the names that you're looking for by doing that kind of broader search and narrowing it down with the filters. But again, this is one of those records, those letters that I was talking about, that makes it incredibly difficult to kind of find prior. So now it's easy enough and comes right up. So the next thing I wanted to kind of go over was searching keywords. So we're going to do another case study, and on this particular case study, we are not going to be looking for a name of a person. We are going to be looking for the name of a building or a street or something like that. In this case, we're going to be looking for King's Chapel in Boston, Massachusetts. And let's say we were hoping to learn more about the building's history in the 1820s. So what we're going to end up doing here is we're going to come over here, and I wanted to show you an example here, because there's a big difference between using the keyword search and the name search. So let's say that we did like we would, we type in King's Chapel into the name in quotation marks and we hit search. Well, what you're going to see here is that no results came up, completely nothing. So we're going to actually flop it now, and we're going to put King's Chapel in the keyword search. So exactly the same thing, we're going to put it in keyword search, and there it is. We now have 4,516 results for the term King's Chapel. And the reason I like to do that is to kind of highlight a little bit about the differences between using keyword and name, because oftentimes you might think they're connected, but actually, keyword is a much broader search, because the software appears to be going through and looking for very specific names, and King's Chapel, it knows, is not a name of a person, and so it will be excluded from the search results. So I believe that keyword is kind of your better way to search in general, because you're searching the entire document in its entirety, as opposed to looking for things that the system is picking up as names, which I find particularly helpful. So 4,516 results is a lot. So we're going to filter it down. So we're going to click on place, we're going to hit the United States, and we're going to limit it down to Massachusetts, and we're going to hit apply. But, that still gives us 3,266 results. So now we want to, we're looking for specifically information related to it in the 1820s. So we're going to click on year, we're going to filter by the 1800s, and then we're going to filter by the 1820s. When we get to the 1820s, you will see that there are now only 65 results. And out of these 65 results, now, this is more specific to information that we are looking at. So what we are going to do is now we can kind of sort through those 65 and see if there's anything relevant to our research. And you can see all the different documents and pages that have the word King's Chapel on it that are going to be particularly helpful for whatever you are looking at relating to King's Chapel in the 1820s. So I just wanted to go over on the last slide here some general tips for full text search. Some things that I have found that's been pretty helpful in my research when going through full text search is to use quotation marks whenever possible for names or exact phrases to get better results. I also like to search very broad. A search that is too specific can exclude a lot of helpful results. And the other thing too that I wanted to talk about was using filters to sort information and narrow results for increased accuracy. Like I said, using the places or the dates or the record types up at the top can be a really helpful way to kind of go from a really broad search down to something very specific that's relevant to the research that you are doing. But thank you so much for coming out to today's presentation. Have a great rest of your day. Thank you so much.